Now that we've improved our ability to draw contour through those exercises, we're going to combine that with our measuring tools to draw a few organic objects. We're going to go through a process of information gathering, reconnaissance as I call it, by measuring the object, getting its proportion, the placement of a few of its details, and then we're going to switch over to our contour drawing abilities and finish the task. So let's start off with the apple on the left. First thing to do is measure its width to height relationship. So I'm going to measure across at its widest part. Then I'm going to flip my pencil, move it down, and then I realize that the width and height of this apple are approximately the same. So now I'm going to sketch out a square. Now let's do a little bit more information gathering. Let's figure out where the widest part of the apple is. It looks like it's right about there, right? That's the widest part, right? Where is that? So this is the middle of the apple. This is probably at about 1/3. So we're using our horizontal alignment tool to figure out that the widest part of the apple is right about here, like this, right? What other piece of information might we need? What about the narrowness? How narrow is the top of the apple relative to the width at its widest part? So let's take a look. It looks like at the top the apple is about 3/4 the width at the widest part. How do we use this information? Well, we know that the apple is somewhat symmetrical, right? We can even draw a plumb line if we want, though that's not going to be as helpful. And then we're going to measure 3/4 and sketch in the width of the apple here, like this. We've got some angles, right? We have an angle here that we can indicate, going this way and going this way, like this. That's probably enough information to figure out what this apple looks like. I've done a little bit of measuring. I've gotten the general proportion. I know that the apple needs to fit within this square. I know it needs to be this wide here and about this wide up here. Now I'm going to start at one spot, right about here at the top, and lightly, because now we're going to be sketching. We're not going to be just putting down a heavy line. Through a series of lines, sketch in the object. I'm looking at the contour, and little by little sketching it in. Use the thumb and forefinger grip. That's going to help you sketch lightly. For those of you that are heavy-handed, hold your pencil further back. You can't help but work light when the pencil is this far away from the tip, when your grip is this far away from the tip. All right, sketch in the object. Now that the object is sketched in, you can sneak your fingers further up and put in your details. All right, there's your apple. Now, obviously missing the interior, but the interior we're going to do a shading, which we're going to deal with later in, I think, about 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. All right, let's deal with the pear. Let's gather a little bit of information about it. Reconnaissance. Let's measure its width to height relationship. One width equals 1, and it looks like about 1 1/4 up. So now we're going to sketch in a slightly elongated rectangle. Do not forget to sketch really lightly. This box is going to disappear. I'm going to erase it, right? Don't make it hard to erase. All right, so now we're going to measure out, here's 1, here's 2, 1/4 is right about here, like this. All right. Now let's figure out where the pear is at its widest part. It looks like notice it's a little bit higher than the apple. Not that this apple right now makes any difference. It doesn't really matter. We're not drawing them together. We're just drawing them separately. It looks like it's about at 1/3 of the way up. That's right about here. Now, where is the apple at its tallest? It's not right through the middle of the object. It looks like it's about 1/3 off to the side, right? So here's a third, here's a third. This is where the pear is at its tallest, at the third, like this. We've got some angles, right? So we have an angle here, running this way. We can sketch in that angle, going that way. We have another angle running this way. We can sketch in that angle. All right, I think we've done enough measuring. Now let's go switch our brains over to our contour drawing mode, if there is such a thing. We've got a round shape towards the bottom, kind of spherical. Put down more than one line. You see I'm kind of letting the line build up little by little? Right? That's a really important part of sketching. Right? It's supposed to try to get the line perfect right away. Just let the line build up little by little. As you improve in drawing, your line quality is going to get better and you're going to be able to put down one clean line all at once. But for right now, just let the lines build up a little bit. Work light. And then once you're confident that the pear is drawn more or less correctly, then you can put down a little bit of a heavier line if you want. Okay, so there are your objects done with a combination of measuring tools and also contour drawing. Now let's try tackling an even more complicated object, starting with our measuring and then switching over to our contour drawing to finish the details. The most important piece of information we need to know is the height to width relationship. Let's do that. So we're going to measure across at the widest part and then compare the width to the height. Notice that the bear is ever so slightly taller than he is wide. So that's going to be 1, and this looks like it's maybe like 1 1/5. Okay. Now let's draw a rectangle that represents those proportions. Let's sketch out the walls. Again, do not forget to work light, light, light. Your sketches should be like a ghost. All right, so here's 1, and we're going to give this bear a little bit more than 1 width, about 1 1/5. All right, not done yet with the information gathering. We need a lot more. What else can we figure out? Well, where is the bear at its tallest? Notice that the very top of the bear, this part right here, runs about through the middle of the form. Right, so you can see that this distance and this distance are about the same. The top of the bear is right through the middle of the object. So this is not technically a plumb line because it's not a symmetrical object, but we're going to do this to figure out where the middle of the bear is because that's going to help us figure out where the head runs. What else? The amount of measuring you do is really up to you. There are some artists that do a lot of measuring, lots and lots of information gathering before they switch the detail. Some artists might just do this. However, we're going to go through all the steps necessary to make this drawing as accurate as possible. What other details might be really useful? Well, what about the width of the head? Let's take a look. Let's measure the head and compare it to the width. Okay, this is interesting. So notice that the head is about half the width of our bear at its widest part. Now we're going to take this width, and now we can center the head here and here. So now we know that the bear's head is going to start right about there. What else? Well, we've got part of the rectangle here. Let's figure out how far down this rectangle goes. How do we do that? Well, we can do a number of things. First of all, we can measure the head from the top to the neck and then compare it to the width. It looks like it's about 1/3 the distance, right? Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, right? Or we can take a measurement of the bear at its widest part and notice that the neck is about 3/4 of the way up. So here's one, and here is about 3/4. So now we can put a little rectangle that's going to help us with the head. Okay, so now we know the head is right about here. It's kind of like this oval object. And now we have a series of angles. We have an angle running this way. We can put it down like this. We have a couple of other angles that we could put down. We have an angle going this way, like this. Can you see that? An angle running this way, like this. See, we're building the object little by little. What else can we figure out? Well, we can figure out how big the paws are, for instance, by measuring the width of the paw and comparing it against something you've already drawn. Let's measure it against the width of the head. Notice that the paw is about half a head's width. Let's take it, bring it down. Here's the dimension of the paw. Like this. What else? We can now use our horizontal alignment tool to figure out that the paw on the right is a little bit higher than the paw on the left. It's right about here, like this. And since it's about the same width as the other one, we can draw a little rectangle here. All right, so you can see that the shape is starting to take form. Now, let's switch over to our contour drawing, allowing the measurements to guide us along. Don't worry about the fur texture, just follow the contour. We'll put the texture on later if we want. The whole point of this is that we're able to, through our measuring tools, figure out the big picture, the big proportion, so that when it comes to drawing the contour, we no longer have to worry about the proportion. We can focus exclusively on just getting the curves right. Very difficult to see both detail and big picture stuff, big proportion at the same time. This is why it's so important to break down the problem into simpler steps. The whole process is all about breaking things down and making the task more digestible. Okay, and now we can also start drawing the contours on the inside. Just like we're putting the wrinkles, the fingernails on our hands, right? We can draw in the negative spaces. And then, if you want, you can start putting in the details here. Now, we'll deal with elements of texture later, but, if you want, you can give the bear a little bit of fur texture. Sorry, I'm trying to draw and hold the phone at the same time, so sometimes I forget that I'm filming. Let's put it that way. Okay, so there is your bear, drawn with a combination of measuring tools and also our contour drawing skills. Let's tackle another object, starting with our measuring tools. Now, when an object is wider than it is tall, we're going to reverse the process by measuring the height and seeing how many times it fits into the width. Keep in mind, when using the proportion measuring tool, you always want to measure the smaller increment into the larger. Why? It's just easier. All right, so let's start off at the very bottom of my object, which is here. And tip of the pencil goes to the very top, thumbnail goes to the very bottom. And let's see how many times the height, in this case, fits into the width. Once, twice. All right, now I'm going to draw a rectangle whose width is twice the height. Here's one, Here's 2. Here's my rectangle. Let's make sure I got it right. 1, 2, okay. Okay, now let's do some additional information gathering. Where is the object at its tallest? So this is the very top of the object. Let's figure out where the tallest part is. Right about here, right at this point. Where is that point relative to the center? It's very close to the center. In fact, it's perhaps a little bit off the center. So I'm going to draw a line, not quite in the middle this time, right? Probably right about here, like this. All right, we have a series of fairly simple angles. We have an angle starting from the top, running this way. We can drop it down and go like this. All right, we have another angle going this way, like that. Now it'd be pretty helpful to figure out how wide the crown is relative to the brim. The brim of the hat, right? How do we do that? Well, we could use a horizontal alignment tool. So here's where the hat starts, and you can see that this line goes a little bit further in, probably right about here. And there's an angle there. Right? Here's an angle, like this. On the other side, right, here's where it ends. It looks like it's about 1/4 of the way in, right? This part right here. Here's a half, here's a 1/4. Yeah, so about 1/4 of the way in. Right, so that's going to be right about here, like this. And there's an angle there. Let's get that angle. Again, the type of measuring you use, which measuring tool, when, is really up to you. Sometimes you can get away without using a measuring tool at all. So for instance, there's an angle here. I'm going to use my horizontal alignment tool to figure out that this part right here and this part right here are at about the same spot. So here's a spot. Here's a spot. There's an angle here. Drop it down. Okay, I think I have enough information to complete my drawing. It doesn't matter where you start, by the way. I usually start at the top. Work my way down. We've got a curve here. Got an angle here. Is it an angle? Looks like it's running mostly straight. And then we have a curve. The rest of this can be drawn just by using your contour drawing ability. Again, the whole point of measuring is to get the big picture stuff out of the way, to start thinking about proportion, placement, scale, before you throw yourself into detail. That's its whole purpose. Once you've measured correctly and you have landmarks that you can place your details on, then you can focus exclusively on just drawing the object, right? Getting the details, getting the texture, ultimately the shading, right? All the fun stuff. So measuring perhaps is not the most interesting part of drawing, but it's absolutely crucial because without it, you might be able to get the details right on the object, but you're not going to get the right proportions. So instead of drawing, I don't know what this is, fedora or trilby, what kind of hat it is, you'll end up drawing some kind of top hat that looks like that.